Oh, I'd just like to analyse the game from today's penultimate round in the Norwegian Championships. I was playing black and my opponent played e4 and I replied as ever e5. E5 and he played bishop c4. Dare I play something from the Freddie Kruger repertoire here in a classic game in the Norwegian Championships? Who knows? Before getting into the game, I'll just tell you a little bit about the backstory of this variation for me. In 2017, when we had the county championships in the town where I live, I played against the player who won it in the first round. He'd won it before, he won it then, and he's won it since. He's about 400 or 500 points higher rated than me, and of course he crushed me. And he played the Bishop's Gambit, and I played as I always did at that time, pawn to b5, the so-called Anderson Gambit, and he took it. And as I said, he crushed me. And after the game, he said, "What did you play that rubbish for? You don't get anything for that." And then he went on to point out absolutely everything which was wrong with my gambit, the Anderson Gambit. And I didn't like getting that lecture, but everything he said was right, and he was nice enough about it. But it irked me. I was hurt by that it had happened. So about 3 years ago, just before it was going to be the county team championships in Karasjok, I saw a video by Chess Boot Camp, and he showed the Calabrese counter gambit, and I was amazed. I thought, this is brilliant, and I became a big fan of Ben. I started watching his videos after that, but I played the Calabrese counter gambit in the team championships. They have the yearly meeting of the county chess federation, and after that they have what they call a not very important blitz tournament, but everybody takes it seriously, even though it's specifically called not serious blitz tournament. And I played again against the man who had crushed my Anderson's gambit, and I played the Calabrese counter gambit, and I crushed him. A player so many points higher than me, it was amazing, and I came third in that tournament. Great tournament, great result. And so I became a big fan of Ben Hunt and his work. Ben's a fantastic bloke. And I began watching all his videos. And, I was watching them and thinking, man, this is a great attacking player. But mistakes happened. And I thought to myself, I really wish I could get hold of this bloke and coach him and help him to be an even better attacking player. But Chess Boot Camp is a great organisation for beginners and intermediate players. And eventually, I got in touch with Ben and asked him for a coaching lesson so that I could take the time to kind of show him a thing or two as a way of supporting his channel for everything that he'd done for chess, and especially for the Calabrese counter gambit, which I'd learned from him. And as a result of that, I eventually became a coach for Chess Boot Camp. I coach free for Chess Boot Camp now because I'm so appreciative of Ben for showing me the Calabrese counter gambit. So, I play the Calabrese counter gambit. I'm going to turn the analysis off in a moment, but you see f5 is a mistake. It's almost down a whole pawn. You've opened up the diagonal of death, you're giving away a pawn, you're not developing your pieces, and you're not getting much back for it because, well, you can actually play d5 straight away, but it's a really difficult line to play. And so my opponent, he was taken aback by the Calabrese gambit, counter gambit. When we discussed the game afterwards, he said he'd never seen it before. I said nobody has ever seen it before. That's one of the reasons why I play it. Nobody plays it. Nobody's ever seen it. So he played d3. Good move. d4 is also good, but d3. And then I thought to myself, are you that crazy, Colin? You've come to the Norwegian Championships, a classic game of chess. This bloke's rated over 1600, and you played the Calabrese counter gambit, and you can't remember what to do after d3. I didn't know what to do. I'm just going to turn the analysis off. So I just had to kind of more or less make it up as I went along. Knight f6, good move. He comes out with his knight. I think, okay, I can get ready for castling, even although I can't legally castle at the minute because of the bishop. We'll have to do something about that. But I can get ready for castling and pin the knight at the same time. I know I'm threatening to take here. And, you know, maybe that's a push take here. But you've always got to think that the queen can come to h5 and once you've played f5. You've always got to be aware of that. But anyway, I pinned his knight and he came out with his bishop. And so I played c6. It's saying I should just play the knight anyway and forget about trying to get the pawn to d5. But I want to get the pawn to d5. And he plays knight to f6. And I play d5. And he takes and I take and he takes. And I put my bishop in the way. And he takes the pawn. And I'm just a pawn down. Just a pawn down for, you know. And I think, okay, he's probably going to safe out and find a way to make this extra pawn count in the endgame, but I do have active pieces. I can try and be active. So I play the queen to pin the pawn, and he comes out with his queen to defend the knight, and I push the pawn to chase the knight away. I would really like to play knight to e5, of course, but he can't because it's covered by the knight. And so he takes, and I take back, and he thinks that he can play knight to b5, and threaten to come into c7 with a fork on the king and rook. And it looks reasonably safe, but he's miscalculated. And after this, well, we'll see. So he plays knight to b5, and I hope you can all see the continuation. Of course I take, and if he takes with the queen, I take with the knight and say check. And if he doesn't put the queen in the way, I take the other knight. And if he does put the queen in the way, I take the queen and then castle short. And I'm a piece up for a pawn. So, you know, he doesn't do that. He takes with a king. But of course then, his knight's there, so my queen wasn't pinned to the king. So then I can come here, check. And if he puts the pawn in the way, I take the pawn on b. If he puts the pawn in the way, I take the pawn on b2, say check. He's got to go back to the back rank. I get the rook and come out again with another check, and then take the queen, and then castle, then take the knight, and then, yeah, whatever. Then I'm just, you know, killing it. So he can't do that. And if he, as I said before, if he just moves the king, I take the knight as it is. And even although he can take the knight back with check, I take it with the queen. And all right, it's not the best position in the world, but I'm also threatening to come to e8 with the rook to threaten his queen. So he makes the best choice here, which is to put the knight in the way. And I take the knight, and he takes back. And I think, okay, I don't really want that discovery to be check. So I'll come back with the queen, and he doubles up. Really, I should just take the knight. When he takes back, take the queen, and when he takes back, you know, fine, it's check, and I go to f7. He gets the pawn, and then he's got 3 pawns for the knight. It's maybe not good, so I decide, no, I'm not going to do that, and I castle. Amazing, I've gotten castled. My opponent didn't get castled. You weren't expecting that when I played f5, and neither was my opponent expecting that I would get castled short and his king would be hanging around in the middle. And so he plays f4, and I think, okay, I'll just bring my rook to the middle, and I'm already thinking about the possibility of playing knight to e4 check, because that pawn's pinned, or at least it is when I move the knight. So he moves the queen out of the way, and I take the knight. I don't mind. If he takes with the pawn, fine, I'll put my queen on a better square. And sorry, I moved my knight and it's fine. But he takes for the rook, of course, and I put my queen on a better square. And he doubles up the attack on the b pawn, and I move it out of the way. And I'm feeling really good, feeling really confident. Okay, it's I've got 5 pawns, he's got 7, 2 pawns up, but I've got an extra knight. But my king's safer than his king, and I will be picking up some pawns eventually. And he plays. I'm not sure about that move, but yeah, it was going to be vulnerable there anyway. But of course, it opens up the D4 field square for me. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up with my languages there. So I play knight check as I said I would, and he goes to E1, which probably is the best square. And I play knight to C5, and I'm threatening to get rid of the rook. So he gets the king out of the way, and I'm threatening 2 pawns now. And it's no good trying to defend it by putting the rook there, because I just chase it away and get the pawn anyway. So he doubles up with his queen and his rook, and I take, and he triples up, and I come back to A4 to cover the D8 square. But I'm not, the point is I'm not forced to take on E8 if he puts his rook there. I'm not forced to create that kind of trouble for myself. He gets his king out of the way, reasonable enough, and I bring my queen to the 6th rank. I'm already thinking that I can push the pawn to A5, so I need to defend the 6th rank, and then get a rook behind the pawn, and then go all the way home. And we'll see if that's what happens. And he plays rook to C7 and threatens the pawn. And I play this. This wasn't such a good idea. I should have just pushed the pawn, as I'd said, or put the rook on A8 and then push the pawn. But I thought, okay, I can threaten the pawn on F4, and he's got to defend with the queen on E3 or F2, because if he pushes the pawn to G3 to defend the pawn, then I've got mate soon on by coming to G2 check, H1 check, then taking the pawn, and then taking the pawn, and then getting the rook into the action, and that's all she wrote. So obviously he covers, but now I see that in covering that, he's covering the queen, he's threatening the rook as well. So I think, oh well, that was a bit dumb. But I double up to have support, and if he plays to E6, then I take with the knight, he takes with the rook, I take with the queen, he gets the rook, but I'm a whole rook up if that happens. So feeling pretty safe there, and yeah, that's a good move. He comes to D5, and now his rooks are actually in more active and possibly threatening places than my rook. And when he does that, of course, he's now threatening to play. Well, not quite, but he's getting near to being able to threaten to play C3, chase the rook away. The problem is that the pawn on D3 is undefended, and then I would be getting a nice attack from a pawn, and a pawn. So he can't do that yet. I play A5, just to say, oh, you gotta keep an eye on this pawn, because it's going to be a queen soon. And yeah, good move. He's threatening mate immediately. Yeah, fine. I'll happily swap the queens off. 7 days a week here, no problem. And the good thing is, because his rooks are on the E file, he can't come to the 6th rank anyway, because the knight is covering it. So great, I'm feeling good. And he plays the queen to E3 and threatens the rook, and I bring it all the way back so that they're doubled. I think of the wisdom of power play chess, Daniel King, who likes to complain when people have split rooks. So my rooks are no longer split. So he threatens my knight. Fine. I come into e4 and cut off the queen from supporting the rooks. And he pushes the pawn one more. Will his pawns become dangerous? Who knows? So I play queen to g4, which is actually a mate threat because he's only square, and which he can get out is covered by the knight. So he played g3. I was sure this was a mistake. I was sure he has to play queen to f1 to defend. But no, the machine isn't so, it thinks both are just about as bad. So I take the pawn, say check again, come in with the knight, say check again, check with the knight, and at the same time I'm threatening queen here, which will eventually get me mate. Actually, if I'll just go through the variation. If he plays no, queen takes pawn on b6, then I'll play queen takes pawn check. Oh no, yeah, I play queen takes pawn check, and he comes to g4 check, g4. I play check with the pawn, and then he goes to g6, and I come here with the rook and say check, and then he can take it with the queen. And alright, he's given up his queen for a rook, but it stops me. But he probably seen all that and thought, well, no, that's not good. And so the queen trade is forced. And now I keep using, one of the things in Nimcevich's great book Die Blockade, the blockade, is the fact that you can use the blockading square as a square to like maneuver your pieces around. And this is exactly what I do now by playing rook to h6, and I'm threatening to come here, and that could be tough for him. So he goes to h3, but this means I can force off a pair of rooks. And I take the rook. I don't take the rook. I come back to h6. It may have been better to take the rook, but I think, well, I can use the d6 square again, and maybe if necessary I can go to f6 with the other rook, and play the pawn to a6 first. So he threatens the pawn, and I threaten the pawn, and now he gets a pawn. Can't do anything about it, but I'm not bothered. It's fine because the knight is safe there. The knight protects also the square h7, and okay, he gets a check and gets a pawn with it, but he doesn't get any more, and everything is still really nicely held together. And he takes, and I play the king, and he goes king to e3. I check him straight away. Yeah, he doesn't have to, but it's probably the best move. So we swap off the rooks, and I come with the king towards the rook, and I come with the king towards the rook, and he goes to threaten the pawn, and he wins the pawn, and now he's got one pawn extra for his knight. He's back to having a pawn for his knight. Around move 40, just before move 40, he offered me a draw, and obviously you should say no thank you or yes, but it just slipped out, and I said Tuller do. No, I said do Tuller. You're kidding. I just after the game I apologised for my language, and he said it's okay, I understand, no problem. I know you didn't mean anything by it, and I didn't. I was just being, it's just how we up in Finnmark speak. So yeah. So he gets a check, and I come back, and now he he said, and we had a very brief discussion. He said he was going to go home and analyse it. He thought it was much better to go home and analyse it on the computer than discuss it than have an amateur discussion about it. And in a way, he's right. But he said here that, when he played g4, he regretted it instantly, and that then the game turns to a loss. But actually, the evaluation is it's lost for him. It's been lost for him all the way. I did not find the best moves all the time. I made it a bit worse, but the evaluation says it's been lost for him all the way. So I thought this, but when he played g4, of course, I'm very, very happy because I play h6. And wherever his rook goes, I'm eventually going to get the pawn on g4. And then, I've got enough material to stop his pawns from coming forward, and I can probably force off pieces. So, sorry. So he played rook to f5 to threaten the knight, and I come here to threaten the rook, and I'm also now threatening to take the pawn on g4, and then the rook is threatened. And he pushed his pawn, and I take with check, and he takes. Wait a minute, is he going to get his king forward? No, because I can just sack the knight, just sack the rook. If he takes, I take with the knight, and he's not getting that pawn through. I'm stopping it, and he can't stop the other one. And if he does stop the other one, if he does stop the a pawn, then the h pawn is going through. So I was happy with that, but the computer, typical, says I should just play rook to d8 first and then do that idea, but and now force the rooks off, and he plays the check, which actually makes his position a little bit worse. Come to f5. It would have taken me a move to get to f5, but he's given me that as a tempo. He pushes. Great. I stop it. I stop the pawn coming any further. And he plays to a8 to threaten the pawn. I take the pawn, and he takes back. His last mistake, really, because now it's that old saw. The rook takes the pawn, and then the rook checks the king and gets the rook behind, and that's what happens. And he takes the rook, and now the knight stops his pawn, and he's nowhere near stopping my pawn. H pawn is going to become a queen, and he shoot me by the hand. So I'm just going to say once again, thanks very much, Ben. I thought that this year would be the last year in which I would do free coaching for Chess Boot Camp, but after you've got me a win in the Norwegian Championships in a classic game, it's going to have to be another year. It's just so simple as that. Yeah, so that was the penultimate game. Thanks.